I put in 4 days and I mean, I wasn't at the next.
Good evening. My name is Laura Schifrin, and I chair the Townsend Housing Authority. And I'd like to call the meeting to order at 7:05 p.m. This evening, I think we'll first go with additions or deletions to the minutes, to the agenda. And the only thing I need to note on here is that Chaz's name needs to be put as the appointee for the state representative, and I apologize. Our agenda is the minutes of the July 17th meeting, which all of the members have a copy of. And I'll entertain a motion to approve those minutes. They were emailed to you prior to today.
I'll make a motion to approve those minutes.
And I have a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None? Okay, so the minutes of July 17th are approved. And Michelle, I'll put this up here for you that you can hand into the town clerk.
You got it.
Thank you.
Easy.
I think since, I'll do a little bit of business. I know it's 7:10, and I was going to have you come up, but do you want to wait for Sheila? Do you want to wait for Sheila?
It's up to you. Yeah,
Okay.
go ahead.
What I'd like to do first is I'd like to go around the room, kind of like we did last time, except now we have a quorum, so we have a full meeting. And I've already introduced myself. Kevin, would you introduce yourself?
Kevin Smith?
Susan Condon, clerk.
Okay.
Randy Carter, Program Manager, Veterans Northeast Outreach.
John Radke, Executive Director, Veterans Northeast Outreach Center.
Michelle Dakota, Land Use Department.
Jess Sexton Duranian, state appointee to the Housing Authority.
Cindy?
Oh, Cindy King, Selectman, Veteran, Task Commander of VFW.
Keith Jackson, member of the VFW in Townsend and State Senior Vice Commander.
Russell Jobe, member of the VFW here in Townsend. Paul Martin, the current commander for the town VFW right here.
Guy John Grover, Veterans Officer, Town and Ashby, Petrol.
Thank you.
And Chris Novelli, Studio One Architects.
Yes, Chris, thank you for coming. Appreciate it. Appreciate all of you being here this evening. Do we have any update on staff, or I said Townsend Housing Authority staff, but are you going to be with us now? And
Right now, we have. I'll be with you until we get a land use coordinator,
Okay.
which hopefully will be soon. They've set up interview times, but I don't know any details about what their timeline is.
Okay. Well, thank you for
But
that.
I'll be here until somebody takes my place.
Okay. All right.
Thank you for your...
What I'd like to do is Sheila's written back that she's en route. So I actually got some questions from a member of the public, and maybe I'll start with those because I think they're directed more towards you, if you don't mind.
That's fine.
So this is more about the funding, which is one of the things that we wanted to get into, obviously. How does the funding work? For instance, in the case of the HUD 202 elder housing, which is what we did before, the town had to build the grant application with the help of Garnier Hicks. Would this funding be similar?
The funding is going to depend on the type of project that you want to do. So if it falls under 202 guidelines, typically we hire the consultant. We do the all the work leading up to the acceptance of all the what is the word escaping me? The pre-development funding through some of the state sources, whether it's CDAC or Mass Development or Federal Home Loan Bank. And really, depending on the type of project, is going to determine which funding sources we request funding from. That is determined by what the need is in the community,
Okay. Which
and as
is,
determined by the community.
okay,
Many of the folks who may be sitting right here
right.
would have strong input to what type of housing is being developed.
Okay,
So there's always a process, no matter whether you're going to go with the 202 program or other types of programs, there's a long process.
okay, another question that came up was, now, Kevin Smith was very active in the projects before, our last two projects. And
Well, specifically the last one.
the last one.
The first one was, I was just young at the time.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I know.
So-
Not that old.
And a lot of what he did was donated, but there was also other parts that were paid for. He's on housing now. Were you on housing the last time?
No, I was on properties.
Oh,
I
okay,
was on town properties back then.
right,
And at that time, it went to town, it was considered town property.
right, and it is town property, what we would have now, so,
Technically, today, it's town property. That particular piece.
yes, is town property. Okay, so I have another question. Cindy, I don't know if you can answer this. Is town properties board committee, are they active? I mean, I used to be on it too, but I haven't heard anything for 2 years.
I haven't heard anything since when you were on it. It's the last time I remember hearing it, but I don't know.
Okay, so the question, we'll just have this as a question. I'm not sure that you can answer it, John, but maybe somebody in town hall can answer it. And that has to do with where Kevin is on housing now, would he be prohibited from working and getting paid on this project?
No, our company may bid the site for the
Like any other.
contractor, for the GC. Any work that my company does initially is because of our family, and that's donated. So like with the test holes, we'll probably donate all the equipment for the initial testing. We'll do things like that.
Right.
But we're gonna do things like that as taxpayers of the community, out of the kindness of our heart. No, it has nothing to do with the job. We'll bid the job. We may or may not bid the job, depending on, maybe I moved at the time.
Yeah. So just, there were other people who also, other businesses during our last project that actually donated.
Correct.
Like Kevin did, his input, their expertise, other businesses also donated their time, effort, at no pay. Cindy, did you?
Yeah, it sounds like, but I'm not an attorney to make that kind of decision. But Chapter 268, Section 19 is the conflict of interest law that refers to you can't vote or participate in anything in which the impression of, I'm not telling you whether you are or not.
I will not.
But it's like that whether there's even the appearance of a financial interest. So what the Attorney General's, I've called, when I first got on the Board of Selectmen, I was calling the AG's office just, okay, can I do this? But if you're on a board, it doesn't cost anything. It takes just a little bit of time to give a call to the conflict of interest folks at the AG's office.
We will do that.
If you do that,
Yeah.
if you're as a member of a board, say, hey, I'm doing this is a situation, what do you say?
But
They'll make a
the work that we will offer to do in its initial stages for testing and things like that, there's no conflict in us doing
Well,
that.
just to be safe, I'd say call them.
No,
It's not.
we'll get the
But
answer
there's no
to that.
payment.
We'll get the answer to that.
So on
That's a
things that are being
donation.
donated?
You can donate any
Financial
services.
interest. It's not just whether or not you're actually going to make money. I mean, absolutely.
You're doing it for zero, fee simple zero.
But that's not, it's more than that. Like, I can't, this is something much smaller, but I cannot vote on the brick store's beer and wine license because I'm an abutter. Because that can
And you're on the
affect the
Board of
property
Selectmen.
values. As a board member of the Board of Selectmen, I can't participate, and that seems like a small thing, like, who cares? But it matters. You said you can't vote on it. Carolyn had to stop voting on the VFW's one-day liquor licenses because, when she was on the board, because of the same chapter and verse. And there was no fight, I'm not
Well,
making any money on that, but.
we'll look into,
It's a simple phone
we'll
call.
look into
That's just what
that,
I
Cindy,
recommend.
when
Yeah.
the time comes.
Absolutely.
If not, then we just don't participate in
Kevin, are you on the
it.
federal bid list?
What's that?
Are you on the federal bid list, the federal grant bid bid list?
I don't know if our company's on there
Are you on the
anymore.
HUD bid list?
What's that?
The HUD. Are you on HUD bid list? You know, to put in for a bid on.
We probably are.
Well, you have to be registered with them,
Yeah, we probably are.
because if you're not, you can't bid.
I don't know. the answer to
Our
that.
last
My company
project.
controller's not sitting here.
Oh, no, I understand that, but I'm saying if you are, then you have all, you can go ahead and bid on that stuff.
I'm not looking at the bid portion of it. Her question is the donation portion of
Or
it.
donation.
Needs to be disclosed as well.
You know, it's, initially, we may contribute $20,000 worth of initial excavation, testing, and that type of paraphernalia as a donation as taxpayers, trying to do it for the love of our community, as we've done it in the past.
That's good. That's enough.
Whether or not we bid it down the road, I guess we'd find out maybe cross that path when we get there.
I understand that.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're gonna go for HUD housing or a federal grant, you gotta go, at least you have a 2-year window on some of that stuff for approval rate.
I believe you're right, yep.
I know I'm right about that.
Yeah, okay. Well, the last time would have been 7 years ago, right? When we did the project?
Yeah, I think
The last
I don't
one.
know if we do much public stuff anymore, because we own most of what we do now.
Yeah.
You know, we haven't,
Okay.
so I don't know whether we actually are doing that now.
Okay, and speaking about the, our gathering of information, part of what we wanted to do tonight and with any meeting that we have is what vehicles we will have to survey or have like a town hall type of meeting where people could come and give their input. And we understand that a lot of the services that are performed for the veterans are private benefits, and you probably don't want to put situations out there. So how is it best, there's a couple of examples here of either a survey in our tax bills or with the census. Couple of things. Could you help us with questions that we could send out? And Cindy, maybe you can answer this. Would we be allowed to do a survey in the tax bills or with the census? Because we're in the information gathering.
Right, I would talk to the department heads on those two, that mail those two things. The census is from the town clerk's office, and the treasurer would do the tax bill. I know that occasionally we do get some additions into the tax bill. They don't physically come out of, the treasurer doesn't mail them, I believe. I believe it's contract, somebody else, whoever does our mailings for that. But I think it's possible, but I would talk to those two departments.
I know that I would be requesting a meeting with the Veteran Service Officer to see what he feels the needs of the community are. And the same thing with the service agencies, VFW and other service agencies in the community. They know their constituents, they know the folks in their neighborhood. The town meeting piece, other people understanding who might be their neighbors or other folks in the community who could utilize affordable housing, and that our veterans are certainly going to have some strong input. And that's where you're going to get a lot of the input. That's, you want this to be what the community wants, not what I'm just coming in
Right,
here to
right.
stick something in your eye. That's not what it's about.
Right.
This is about what is needed in the community, what does the community feel is the best methodology and use of that property to assist veterans.
Right, I think we expressed that to mostly the 4 gentlemen that are here this evening, representing the veterans. They were here the last time, and I think we had 1 or 2 others. I know Russ was here the last time. Joe wasn't able to attend. He was invited again this evening, and he would be our local agent. So it's a matter of what do you think the questions could be that we could ask? Because we as a board want to do this for veterans, but we don't have the answers of what the needs are. We know we have the land, we know we have a good amount of land, and can facilitate, hopefully, a lot of things, with that land. But we want it to be what the veterans want.
To come up with these questions, I would recommend that a committee is actually formed to sit down and really work it out and really utilizing John's experience, because obviously with all the work that you've done, he's already been down this road once, many times really. But if anybody has the input that could really help us on a committee that could answer those questions as you're asking for, I think, getting a committee of people in the town, prominent veterans who understands the issues and the questions to ask, along with John, I think that's probably where we should actually start this or build the foundation and grow it from that area.
I agree. That's where you can start to shape this whole thing.
Correct.
And that's a good segue into the next question was, would we be setting up these small meetings and would you be able to attend? Okay. That was actually the final question.
Be happy to attend.
Okay, that's great. So thank you, Sheila. Welcome. We'll come in this
I
evening.
hope I'm not here at the final question.
No, we actually started with some questions from somebody who emailed me that
Okay.
they couldn't attend and they wanted
Okay,
these
great.
questions, so we actually did those first. We did do our introductions, and now we can start with our 7:10 appointment with John.
Okay. Sorry about that.
The floor is yours, John, and then we'll open it up we'll have you open it up for questions.
Okay, so I apologize for not being here for the last meeting. The previous meeting, I explained just some basics that our agency owns or manages about 200 units of housing, different types of housing, everything from emergency beds, transitional beds, permanent housing with services, permanent housing with minimal services, and permanent housing with no services. Services only if we get a call. We do have veteran families where the veteran or the spouse loses their job, their income goes down, they get an eviction letter. All they really need is something for short term until employment for that spouse or the veteran is regenerated and they're fine. Others may need a whole lot more services than that. And everything we do is going to be based on that veteran or that veteran family. We don't just help the vet, we help the veteran's family. What
Can
we've
everybody
found,
hear?
Excuse me, I was going to say, John, if you just wanted to stand up and take the mic, it might be easier for you to get to
Or,
everybody.
or sit with the mic.
Or sit with the
kind of
mic,
thing.
whatever works.
Because it's going to be on YouTube. It will be taped and videoed so that other people can see what we're doing here in town.
absolutely. So we have found over the years that just helping the vet themselves it's a wonderful thing, but why can't we help the whole family? If we can find a job for the spouse, does that not increase the household income? If we can find a job for work-age children, does that not increase the family income and the quality of life of those families? And those are the kind of things that we try to do. We're not just narrowing in on the vet, we're including the whole family. And which type of housing may be best for which situation, that's what this committee needs to find out. What do you want in your community? What's going to work for the vets and their families? Is it family housing? You got enough seats in the school? What are you going to develop here? Is it housing for homeless vets? How's the veteran service officer feel about his role in that with his budget growing a little bit? I can tell you that we have almost 100 units in Haverhill, and we have 4 people on Chapter 115. That's a very small number of people on Chapter 115 for that amount of units.
Is there a reason behind that?
Yes, we...
And can you explain what that is to
I'm just
the
saying.
audience?
There's a lot of reasons behind that. A lot of it has to do with when we have a veteran who has no income or very low income, we do our best to help them get an income and or their family member. Between our Metro office and Haverhill office, last year we got back $2.2 million in retroactive payments to veterans and disability claims. So we work with Social Security, we work with VA disability, we work with non-service connected disability, we work with employers. Some of our vets are receiving some disability pay and working part-time. Whatever works. We hire a good number of folks as they're coming through our program to get them some work experience, so we can also indicate that they have been very reliable employees to that next employer.
Can I ask you a question, John?
Yeah.
Do you refer your vets to the VSO for Chapter 115?
We do.
Does the VSO put them into the program? Now, do you get reimbursed for the while they're in your program on Chapter 115?
Do I get reimbursed?
Yeah, does the home get reimbursed? So they get a monetary back, a percentage of that goes to the home, and a percentage goes to
It depends on what the dollars are that are going to that veteran. If there is a housing component to that, there may be a fee that is charged to that veteran that the VSO is paying for. For example, we may have a building that an SR single room occupancy facility, and one of those veterans may be on Chapter 115. They are getting a subsidy from HUD for most of that unit, and the VSO may be giving a stipend of $150 a month or less for another part of that.
So the VASH program is kicking in on that too, right?
VASH program also could be pulling some dollars out of the Veteran Service
The VASH program
Office.
works on the federal HUD system where they pay 70% of the rental fee and 30% to let the veteran.
The veteran pays 30%. And again, depending on what that income is. And that's why it's so important for us to get that veteran an income, or the family an income, to get them off of 115 as soon as
Yeah, I
possible.
understand that, and I do give 115 out over here, especially up at Townsend, Woods. We have veterans up there receiving 115, and they're still there, okay? So they come under the HUD program, it's a completely different program, okay? But on the VASH program on homeless veterans who qualify because of the program to the VA, they can go and get a place, not only to your place, but they can go to any landlord that rents out to that VASH program and live there, whatever the community might be. So what I'm getting at is, we have to look at the demographics of the area to identify how many, really in this area, there's not that many homeless vets, and I've worked with homeless vets here, but overall, the demographics is a little bit different on the disability factors, okay? So you have to look at the demographics of the area to see how many veterans are there, and then we have to find out through the VA what is the disability of the number of veterans in the area, which we do get a report on that to the state. So, and then we can come up with more answers, probably, what you're talking about, which I think, I mean, your housing is great. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. I think it's a great program that going. So, I mean, I think that, I just couldn't understand why they're not getting Chapter 115 benefits. I just understand that.
They're over income.
Over income?
Discharge status also.
Then Urena down there, Secretary Urena has to make a change and raise the income level a little bit higher instead of keeping it a little bit. Because it's single person, 1,900, married couple is 25.
I don't think any of us really agree with those numbers. Those numbers are antiquated.
That's very antiquated.
They are antiquated. However, we also want to make sure that you're not putting such a burden on every city and town
True.
with those costs.
I agree with you on that. But I'm just saying, they haven't moved up that much over the last few years.
They haven't moved up.
That's what I'm saying. You know,
They haven't
somebody comes
budged.
in And they're at $35,000 a year, they don't even meet the 200% poverty level, you know? So they don't qualify for certain housing, you know what I'm saying? Where you go to HUD, it's a little bit higher. The HUD percentage is a lot higher on income to get into the HUD area than, you know, some of the veterans programs. You have to beat that 200% poverty level, and it's really, I mean, to me, it's like you say, it is antiquated. It's just
Right, and I think when you develop some housing, you could have that mix, and especially if you're going to ask for some, you know, a number of funding sources, X amount of units are for 30% of median income and below, X amount are 50% and below, X amount are 80% and below. And depending on the income of those individuals, some may be eligible for 115, some may not be eligible for 115.
I understand what you're saying, I understand. And it was just hard to say, you only have 4 people in there, I said, whoa.
Right, either way, we want to focus on how do we increase that person's income? What can we do to help them? What can we do to help reduce costs on them? That's another way of increasing their income, kind of indirectly. If you can reduce their costs, they have more money in their pocket.
So Chapter 115 is?
Chapter 115 is a state benefit that's given out through the state, and it's for veterans and their spouses and families that
Housing?
come under the 200% poverty level, which the town pays. We get a 75% reimbursement on that from the state. The town pays 25%. And if they qualify for those benefits, even though they're underemployed, they can be still working and qualify for that.
Okay.
Okay, so you have underemployed, unemployed, then you have the veterans or senior citizens that qualify for the 200% poverty level, which can come in, and their widows and the veterans themselves can qualify for Chapter 115. That's a state-run benefit.
Okay.
That's through the Department of Veterans Services. And it has nothing to do with the federal government at all. The reimbursements, they get their reimbursement from the federal government. It's still state-run, which the state comes up with. Actually, if you look at the Chapter 115 and you look at the welfare program, Chapter 115 is a portion of the welfare program.
Oh.
It is in that article, okay? So what happens is, say for
But
instance,
for veterans?
Yeah, for veterans only. So say I'm a veteran, I go down and I apply for, I'm out of work and my family needs help. I go apply for welfare. Welfare finds out I'm a veteran, and I said, okay, go down to the Townsend and see your VSO. Put you on Chapter 115, because the benefits is much higher
Okay.
than their welfare. And they can still get food stamps and stuff like that, okay?
I think
So-
you just stating that is good information to get out to our community.
Well, we do, we have it on our website. If you go on the website and look at that, we do get it out to the community.
But I think it's also important, what you said is that it doesn't have to be one size fits all either. So some people that might be HUD eligible, that's more where their funding's gonna come from.
Yeah.
Meaning, we'll take it from whence it can
Well, we do
come.
the same thing. We do the same thing on Chapter 115. We tell the veteran if he has a disability, we seek compensation, and we file the paperwork for him, compensation to the VA if he's disabled, or the file for a veteran's pension, or the file for Social Security disability. We seek other funding. That's their responsibility, my responsibility, okay? And then we send them down to the local veterans office at the Division of Unemployment Services, get interviews down here, and set up a resume, and we do put them in the job market. get hired, okay? So it's a working process. Some of it succeeds, some of it doesn't.
Yeah.
But then there's some programs that, you have certain individuals out there that are in the area that it's very difficult for them to find work because they have different disabilities, post-traumatic stress disorders, drug, alcohol disorders. So then we got to get them to the Bedford VA hospital or something, put them in the drug program or something of that nature so they can get on track. So it's difficult, but it's not difficult to get them in, but we can't force them to go. If they go, they don't want to stay, they can walk right out after 3 days, so.
Well, one of the things we did talk about at the last meeting, and unfortunately you weren't able to be here, but I think it was sort of a unanimous thought amongst everybody that was here for that discussion, is that with the invisible wounds now, the post-traumatic stress and such, we felt like it would probably be a good idea for us to look into services being provided on site. And not really sure how that works at some of your other facilities, but we also thought of that we have some people that may need assisted living type of units, and I don't know if that ever falls into these types of housing programs.
For example, our last building that we did, Townsend Woods, is all aging in place. So once they move in, should a disability develop, although we did that right away, so our intent, I think our intent would be that everything would be aging in place so that those that did have disabilities would be able to do that. So is that familiar to you?
Yeah, we have different models. Everything we do, every time we do a new project, it's different than the previous project because we've learned from every other project. What are we not doing? Who are we not helping? Who's falling through the cracks? So we started these programs, and then along came home health care and home health aides, which helped us in some of our facilities because then we didn't have to get into the aging in place because it was now happening automatically for those who are eligible for those benefits. What are you going to do for folks who are not eligible for those benefits? Now instead of going to the VA program, now you have to go to, hopefully they're qualified for Mass Health in that respect. So it's a balancing act that you have to do with all of this. Every special service that you want, think about the numbers of your project going up. And where are you going to get those dollars for services? HUD wants to give you money for housing. Others want to give you money for housing. Banks want to give you money for housing. They not necessarily want to give you money for services. Are you going to be able to get money through the Department of Veteran Services? Through your rep? A line item? Maybe you can get some dollars that way.
One of the things that got brought up, and I don't know if you've seen this in any of your facilities, but if the facility had a room where there'd be access for different healthcare providers to come, like on a rotating basis or something, they would bill out, they would get through the insurance or Mass Health or whatever they'd be paid through, or through the VA if that were the case. Have you seen that where they'll take advantage of the fact that you have an on-site program, or not as frequently?
Many of the on-site programs that I've seen have to deal with chronically homeless.
Okay.
To qualify for these programs, you have to be chronically homeless, which means you had to have 3 episodes of homelessness in X amount of time that equal more than 12 months. And you have to be disabled. That's pretty tough criteria to meet, believe it or not.
Is that true for the invisible too?
I'm sorry?
Is that true for the invisible?
The people that have post-traumatic stress, that they have to be qualified as that?
They also have to be financially qualified for these services.
Okay, I have a question. Cindy, and then no.
So when you're talking about post-traumatic stress, it's what can your agency provide for services based on what the housing model is So you have to figure all these kinds of things out as you're doing your pro forma. What do we want this housing to be? Or is there somebody local who provides this? Is there a VA vet center
Right.
that provides that service for free? We have
We have one in Fitchburg. don't
We have,
Yeah, we got a CBOC on Facebook.
in our Haverhill site, we have the Lowell Vet Center that provides that counseling service for our folks in housing, and we have a member from the Boston Vet Center. Also, we hired the previous team leader at the Lowell Vet Center because here's what happens. The invisible disease. It takes a while for those of us who have that invisible disease to talk to somebody about it. Now, we finally get comfortable talking to somebody about it, and the VA moves them, or they retire. And we had a good number of people in our catchment area, in the Haverhill, greater Haverhill area, that were seeing this particular person. So we hired them to keep that going, to keep that relationship going. And eventually, they will probably have to move on to someone else, but let's kind of lighten that load a little bit for them and keep them comfortable while we can keep people comfortable with the services that they have. And anytime we can do those kinds of things, that's what we're going to do. Are there other services available for that through other methodologies? Through Mass Health, I'm sure there are some things that are available. What if you don't like your VA counselor? Can you go to Mass Health? Can you do these other things? This person only wants to put me on medication. I don't want to be on medication. This person doesn't want to put me on medication. Well, I'm working with both of them, and they both want to put me on medication, and I'm taking both. So you have that mix.
Cindy, you had a question?
Yeah, I had a question for John. Do you have any houses that are involved with the CRC program?
We were the first CRC VA grant per diem program. What does that mean? That means we combined two programs into one. And then the VA broke it up. VA Grant Per Diem is a program where someone is coming directly from the VA hospital into a transitional housing facility for up to 2 years to stabilize. The CRC is a program, another program, for those who could afford to pay someone in the community to live at their facility. They could have paid 30%, they could pay 80%. It depends on what the CRC home wanted to charge. These are private homes. Could be 4 units in one home, could be 50 in a building. It depends on the makeup of that operation. Why did we do the CRC Grant Per Diem? Because Grant Per Diem was paying the daily rate for the bed, and we didn't have to charge the veteran. So we were able to take folks who could not afford to go to that house, to go into the CRC program. We thought it worked very well. I think the inner workings of the VA saw them as something that should be separated because they were being paid by 2 different parts of the VA. One, we didn't take any money from, but you're providing human resources in counseling to both. So that was removed, and it didn't mean we didn't take any of those clients. We still took them, but we now took them under the VA Grant Per Diem program.
So you're not involved with the CRC at all anymore?
No, and I see many of those are going away.
Are they? I was about 15 years ago, I worked at the VA in the CRC program.
I don't think you're going to find very many of them left. And those that are left, my goodness, if you're 100% VA service-connected disabled, and now you're paying 80%, 60%, 80% of that to live in a single-room occupancy facility. I feel so bad for those folks, but there is a roof over their head. There is someone taking care of them, helping
They
take
have
care
a
of
lot
them.
of services
But,
that you wouldn't get in a regular community.
you know, we
Like
provide
through a
those same,
DMH or-
we provide those same services in our grant per diem program every day.
Oh, good.
So it was not difficult for us, and we found a way to do it cheaper. Less expensive, I should
So the
say.
grant per diem program would be something that would be able to be used here?
Grant per
Is one of the
diem-
options that we...
Grant per diem is another program that is downsizing, or let's call it right-sizing. Too many grant per diem beds in the state. Can't get enough people to get their heads together to say, I'll reduce my number because I only fill 50% of my beds. We're at 96% occupancy.
I was going to ask.
So, for us to lose beds is ludicrous. Someone that's at 50% occupancy, probably that's the group who should lose some beds. Didn't work out that way, believe it or not. But they're giving us a year extension, and I think our program will continue to, I think our program will survive the next round, so we
Could
feel
we have
good about that.
mixed funding if we, whatever we do? Could we have mixed programs, different programs in the same
Yeah, you can have
facility?
mixed
Whatever the
programs.
veteran qualifies for.
We could, if, again, I need to talk with these folks. I need to talk with other folks in the community who understand the community and as to what the needs of the local veterans are. But now you have that. Now, is there anything else that you want to do? What about your neighboring community? They don't have anything. Are you going to let that happen? Do you want to bring folks in from outside the community? And depending on your funding sources, you may not have any choice.
One of the things that was brought up...
And I think I'm hoping I speak for all of us. As veterans, we're veterans, and we're going to take care of that veteran in need.
I think a large number of them, if we have a housing place, a large number of the people that would end up living there, they're not going to come from existing towns and people, they're going to come from somewhere else.
So there's a number of things we could do. Could we get vouchers for those who need a subsidy from the state? It's quite possible we could get a few of those. It's quite possible we could get some project-based VASH, which is another VA, that's your VA Section 8 program. Will other rounds of grant per diem come out? Can we ask to transfer some of our beds to another program? Now you're looking at services. You're looking at how are we going to do that for X amount of beds, and can you do that? There's a lot that's got to go into that. But the brief answer, can you mix? Yep. Do you want to mix? You know what, it works for us in other areas. Single room occupancy. I want that apartment. What do I need to do to get that apartment? Pay my back child support. I need to get my license back. I need to get a job. I need to do this and this. Now that's the hard story. That's not everybody. You know, I need to get my meds in check. I need to do this. I need to get my physical capabilities in check. I need to do all these kinds of things before I can move over there or be happy over there, that I don't have all this burden on me. So you can certainly have a mix of this and a mix of that, and what is that mix that's needed in the community? How's this a win for the vets? How's this a win for the community? That's what we want to do. That's the kind of thing you want to develop.
So to Joe, at the last meeting, Russ was here and somebody else that just escapes me right now.
Brian Morton.
Right.
Brian, right. How could I forget that? It was mentioned that there were 800 veterans in Townsend, and they felt when you bring in like Ashby and Pepperell, that we're probably over 1,000 veterans in this area. So I happened to look up the Townsend website today, and it says that we service approximately 36 veterans each year, or help 36 veterans each year in Townsend. So, but you also do Pepperell and Ashby?
We service more than 36 veterans.
Okay, that's what the Townsend website says as of yesterday.
We don't, I'm not, break it down in two different areas. You start in chapter
town
number
report.
5 is a little bit different, and we service for federal compensations and pensions and all that other federal stuff, which we do that for the federal government on a pro bono, which means we do the paperwork for the veterans. And so we do more than that. And what I do is when I make my town report, I put down what we're servicing with chapter 115 as far as the veterans go. Actually, the actual number for veterans between all the towns,
Between Ashby, Pepperell, and Townsend, Joe. Those are the 3 towns you service.
I say total amount between 15 and 1,600.
15 and
Okay,
16.
veterans.
That's 3 towns.
Okay.
Okay.
So we were told at the last meeting probably 800 in Townsend.
No, no,
There's not that many?
no.
But you could also assist the spouse of a veteran, correct, if he's
What's that?
deceased? You can assist the spouse of a veteran if they're
Yes, we
deceased,
do.
right?
We-
So that's another number too, that's probably not being counted.
Yeah, right. Well, on chapter 115, we would count on federal like DIC and, and other benefits that they put in for as far as, mostly on spousal, it's DIC and assisted living,
Yep,
for,
bed reimbursements.
that's the question I want to ask you. Do you get assisted living over at your place?
I don't have that.
You can't get that through the Veterans Administration?
You mean get
Assisted living.
recognized as an assisted living
It's like they went into a home, they would apply for assisted living through the VA, and it goes directly to a home, a private home. Do you get the same benefit?
We do not do assisted living.
You don't do
We
assisted?
can help people get to assisted
Or you
living.
help people get to assisted, so you don't do that? That's not, it's only a question to ask.
We don't have that in our portfolio yet. Do we need it? Because the cost of assisted living,
I think that would help.
is
I mean, if you get it,
incredible.
That covers a lot of funding for people who need assisted living.
Do we have
You were saying-
a big call for that?
What's that?
Do we have a big call for the assisted living, right?
Yeah, you get people-
We do have on-site nursing though, we do have
That's-
nursing.
Yeah, you have on-site nursing, right.
And they can get home health aid,
Yep,
so they can kind of have
you're
their own.
about as
assisted
close to
living.
assisted living as you can get without being in a facility that's designated assisted living or licensed as assisted living.
But I
So,
understand that on-site, on the home, like say for instance, you have a veteran who is disabled and he's at home and his wife is taking care of him, and he has them calling her, they get assisted living at the home, on-site assisted living. Matter of fact, the spouse can qualify if he's the sole caretaker of that individual.
I think I'm confusing your definition. We have medical services available to folks in our housing, which is that close to being called an assisted living facility.
Okay.
But we're not licensed as an assisted
You're not
living
licensed,
facility.
okay.
And what we're finding is, as our veterans are aging, as we are aging, those difficulties get greater and greater and greater, and the opportunity to go to an assisted living facility is just not there. It's not there. So how do we get those services to the vets where they're living, to age in place, to remain there as long as they possibly can? And I think that's a bigger and bigger chore for us on a daily basis. We're seeing more and more of that, and some of that's because as our vets may get better economically, but it gets to a point, and then it plateaus. And that's where it is for life. This is what their income is for life. and they can't afford these rents and things on the outside. They're going to need a subsidy for life when they get to this point. Can't get into assisted living. Let's bring the medical help to them for as long as we can possibly do that. And we're doing it for some of our folks who have some very major medical issues. Running people to the hospital who need to get to dialysis every 3 days. You know, that's a pretty difficult chore when you're trying to take care of all this kind of stuff, and you didn't start out this way. You started out as a service agency, now you're a housing, I'm not complaining, believe me, because I love what we're doing. When I talked about some other things that we do, is every time we put in for a new project, whether it's HUD leasing dollars, I can go out in the community in certain cities and towns, depending on which continuum of care I got the grant from, that I can lease housing. So the first time we leased housing for single vets, 1-bedroom apartments. That's what our grant was. Then as people started coming in, families started coming in, and other issues coming up, the next grant we wrote included families. So it was larger units. How can we do better? Look at what's happening. That hidden disease pops up, traumatic brain injury or PTSD. The family separates. The veteran with the issue ends up back with mom and dad who are in their 80s. They didn't expect this. We can house mom, dad, and the vet. We can do things that we never thought about doing before because these occasions are coming up more and more. We can put 2 single vets in a 2-bedroom apartment funded by HUD. What a novel idea that was. Why have an empty 2-bedroom apartment? Why can't I put 2 single vets in there?
Can I just ask you a question that it's going to seem sort of a simplistic question, but logistically, how does this work? Meaning, when as we've been talking about the project, as we said, our biggest thing we have is the land. And you have done these projects before, and you seem to know how to get the resources in, once it's there. Logistically, do you have somebody that will be designated to this project who will sort of be on site? I guess, in other housing projects, it's been management companies that sort of run the place once it gets going, and they collect all the rents and all of that, and they kind of run separate. Are you, with this veterans housing project like that you're showing here, this Westford one, that you have a picture behind you, obviously that seems like that's not a huge scale project, so I don't imagine there's a staff member sitting somewhere in that building doing anything. How does that actually work?
This is actually owned by the Chelmsford Housing Authority.
Oh, it is? Okay.
And we provide services to this
Okay.
facility. I brought this to show you the size and type, different types of housing that we're involved in. I can tell you that we are negotiating to purchase this.
Okay.
And negotiating to purchase their other veterans housing project.
Okay.
Because we then can put somebody on site.
Okay, I see. That's
And we
what I
can
was
provide
trying to
better
figure out.
services and do some things. Chelmsford Housing Authority does some wonderful things for folks. Very, very good things. And I think they found that when you have the veterans community taking care of the veterans community, they know we can do it better.
Right.
And that's a credit to them to say, if here's an agency who can do it better, to help our veterans better, why don't we let them do that?
Right.
The only way we can do that is to be able to then take the rent money that's left over after the operations money and hire people to take care of
Right.
folks.
You're very much on site in Haverhill then? You're-
We're on site in all locations. Every one of our veterans has a case manager assigned to them.
Okay.
One way, whether it be, they may not speak for months after they receive the services, but there's always follow-up. Every 90 days we're calling. Some require attendance every day. So there isn't we don't just put someone in there without a case manager.
Right, okay.
What's the comparison, I'm just using this for fun, what's the comparison between you, vetting, and Montezuma Outreach?
We all do some similar things. We all have different ways that we do it. Some of us may provide a little bit of different service here, a little bit of different service there. I would encourage you to take a look at what everybody does.
Okay, what I'm just saying is that vetting, Worcester, and at Devon have units there. And Montezuma Outreach and Garner have units there, which I utilize for veterans, for homeless vets.
And Joe, if I can just say one thing to that. So when we were trying to work with the Secretary's office, Secretary of Veterans Affairs, and we sort of described what we were looking to do here, it was Secretary Urena's office that said that this group sort of does the model that we were kind of looking towards. And that's why. So I guess that there is some similarities, there are some differences, but you offered sort of when we explained to the Secretary's office what we were looking for, they said this is the model.
Yeah. I just want to know the difference between the agencies that are available, that's all. I'm just giving you.
I think it's probably best that the veterans tell you that. What the differences are and why they may choose services from one to the other. Some is, a lot of our clients live in the Bedford VA catchment area. That's some of it. And some of it is how we do business and how we,
I'll get a call of a veteran at 10 o'clock at night, and I'll refer them to Betsy, because they live in the Worcester area or something. So it's convenient for them to go there.
Because the breakup, the breakup in the way the PA got everything broken up by communities is that Townsend comes under the Leeds, Northampton, Worcester area. Pepperell comes under Bedford area. Ashley comes under Worcester. So now you're working with three different segments. It is confusing, but it works. I mean, it's confusing.
You have to make it work. You have to figure it.
It is confusing, but it works. And so a guy comes in and says, well, I want to go to Worcester. Well, he's from Townsend. He said, well, I want to go to Bedford. And he said, well, you can't go to Bedford. You got to go to Worcester, because that's where you reconcile, right? So it's a little bit, confusing to some. It's not confusing to me, because we make it work. The point I'm trying to say is that the way they split up these towns, I wonder if we came up with that idea, It's unusual. But I'm just saying the program's great. I love it. I love what he's saying.
We try to make things invisible to the vet, how all that VA stuff and how they separate things and whatever. We want to make it, we're one veterans group, it's one VA, that's how we promote things, it's one Department of Veteran Services. Let's work together to get this done. If you start doing these silos, you're not going to.
No, it's great. I think it's wonderful. I think it's great. I truly support the idea. It's great.
When we first met with John and Randy, there was no one in attendance, just the board. And our ideas were to serve as many veterans as we could, so we didn't know how many units we would be talking about, but we also were very interested in serving families, not just a single one, but a family, or a family of a veteran who passed. We figured that these were still all a family thing and all these people needed services. And for us, it was exciting to think that we could add that to the property that we now have, that it would be a complement, and it would bring services to Townsend that we don't have in town.
Correct.
So now,
I was just going to say, that was a big issue too. I know last time when some of you were here, were saying that the distance that some of our vets have to go to get some of the services are just, prohibitive as far as going into I think you were talking about, some people having to go into like West Roxbury, right?
Yeah, Jamaica Plains, West Rockford, even Brockton.
Yeah, for any like cancer treatment and stuff, and it's very hard.
This is for stage 4 cancer.
Yeah.
Not like you guys are gonna jump in this car and drive down. It's definitely an issue, and it created a lot of issues to get this guy the services that he needed to get him out of Townsend to his doctor appointments while he was going through
We
stage
just had
4.
that conversation today.
Yeah, actually, Randy and I took a ride out to the property and took a ride around and scope it out. And it's beautiful. It's a beautiful piece of property. And it's a beautiful town. It is difficult for anybody to get to any VA medical service. And so whatever is done, there needs to be a transportation component involved in this. And how do we do that? And I can tell you that, yeah, our agency has a very good relationship with Bedford VA. That doesn't mean Bedford VA doesn't do some things that could be improved on, or could be improved on. And so Bedford VA has a clinic in Haverhill, 2 blocks from us. Many of our residents use that clinic. But you don't get all the services at that clinic. You have to go to Bedford or Jamaica Plain or West Roxbury or New Hampshire or Manchester, New Hampshire. And when you get an appointment at Bedford, you can get on the shuttle at the clinic. The shuttle leaves at 9 a.m. and the return is at 12:30. How many appointments are available between now it's going to take you 45 minutes to get
And we
there,
discussed that last
right?
night.
In that short period of time, right? So
always running late.
we asked if we could take it over, and they says, "Oh no, we can't do that. We can." I says, "Okay." So we created our own. We have a number of our folks who go to Bedford quite often, either for compensated work therapy, or veterans construction team, or medical issues, or hidden disease issues. And so we leave, our van leaves at 5:30 and goes to Bedford. That's to take some folks to work. But Bedford is the cog in the wheel to West Roxbury, to Jamaica Plain. You can get connecting transportation. So we're getting people to Bedford for connecting transportation. When our van comes back, or vans, depending on how many people need to ride, we pull up behind the 9 a.m. shuttle in case they have overflow. Because typically they have overflow, or there may be somebody who needs more room than they have on that shuttle. So we will provide that. And we'll follow the VA van to Bedford and make another run back. And we will do that on a periodic basis during the day to make sure that everybody gets back and to make sure that this service is provided. We know we're going to have to do something out here if we have housing out here. There's just got to be some kind of transportation that would be included in that facility.
And one other question, something that sort of came up last week as well, or not last week, last meeting, excuse me, was, do you ever have people that, like, sort of groups, like, say, not that people are legally sick, but say the North Middlesex Bar Association said, we're going to offer services to these veterans, legal services, and we'll take turns, we'll have like a rotating schedule, something like that, help people do their wills or whatever. That's a need, but it wouldn't be a for-fee need. It would be like just a volunteer service. And we didn't know whether you have like any kind of volunteer kind of services coming to you from different communities and groups to help out. Okay.
We do. The only thing we charge is rent. We're behind in charging some of that because of the situation of some folks. I don't mean behind. We know they can't pay. Any of the services that we provide are free services. And how do you do that? You partner with the right people. You have to find them, and then after a while, they find you. The success of your program, word of mouth, starts to bring people to you that you won't believe. We have everything from guitar lessons, and at the end of the guitar lessons, the vets are going to be able to keep the guitar. That was somebody who walked in our door and asked if they could do that. Okay?
That's awesome.
Now, that, believe it or not, that's an alternative therapy.
Yes.
So you have massage therapy, you have folks who donate that. Those are in addition to those other things that we do. You know, break away from that. Everybody has to go into this counseling session, the group counseling session, the individual counseling session. What can you do that's fun? And not that this isn't important, but so is this. A lot of what we do in regard to that are people volunteer, legal services. Sometimes you think that they're volunteering that, but it's in their charter to do it. They have to do this. Legal services, financial counseling, those kinds of things are available.
Yeah, we have all
You know,
of those around
and
here.
if
That would
somebody
work.
wanted to do a particular kind of group, we would canvass the troops, see if anybody wants to do that.
And the bottom line on this is if we build it, they'll come. This is an ongoing process. I work real close with Bill Moore, which is part of Project New Hope. I've done a couple of his retreats up in Groton. And it's really unique when he started out, a lot of these therapy items that you're talking about, it just grew. It really turned into a whirlwind. He just opened up a new place in Connecticut now. So he's actually taken over the whole East Coast, and it's all volunteers that are doing this. And it is phenomenal, and I believe if we build it, they're gonna come. They will. And I'm talking about the services. I know the veterans are coming, but I'm talking about more of the services
Yeah.
and these other things that we need. I think one of the pieces that we really have to sit down and figure out is meet and actually come up with the foundation of building this, answering these questions, doing an analysis on the town of Townsend, Ashby, and Pepperell, with the amount of veterans we have. We definitely need Joe Mazzola's expertise in that area, and we need to begin building this piece so we know exactly what our requirements are. Right now, we don't know what the requirements are because we haven't done an analysis. So I think that analysis piece is really critical to give us a baseline. And once we get that baseline, then we'll be able to alter how we move off of that baseline. And I really think that that's probably what we need to really look at.
I just wanted to check, because sometimes there are organizations or places that they can't have volunteers. Like, oh, too much of a liability, we can't have volunteers doing this or that or whatever. But it sounds like this is the type of facility where you could.
Yeah, there's certain things that, I mean, we're talking about some highly professional and licensed people doing those things.
Right.
When it comes to, I prefer to pay my van drivers because I know then the van driver shows up. It's their job. I prefer to pay my cook because I know the cook will show up because it's his job. And so there are certain positions that are okay to have a helper, but not, you know, I'm not trying to save dollars by getting some volunteers that are going to take me more work and hours of my other folks. Then
So you're just expanding what you have by adding to it with that.
But let's utilize that volunteer effort in the right way. And let's utilize, and what are the qualifications of those volunteers? You know, I want to be a brain surgeon. Oh, I'm sorry, it's just not what we do here.
I think Cindy had a question.
Yeah, just going back to the transportation, I completely agree. We've had a transportation issue here since I've been here, that trying to get veterans to appointments within the VA is nearly impossible, even if you work there. And certainly in the communities like Townsend, trying to get even, I mean, we have Pittsburgh CVOC, We can't get people there half the time, and then to get to Bedford, and of course, you have to go beyond, it's impossible. But my question was, where you said that you've taken over some of the van services to get your veterans to services. Now, some of the veterans are qualified for transportation reimbursement if they were to get there themselves. Are you able to capture some of that money? Since you're providing it?
Well, here's what I don't do. We don't do. We don't take people's food stamps and food cards away from them, even though we may be providing meals. Let's teach people how to use those cards as they're supposed to be used, purchase those things that we can't provide for them to supplement their pantry, their home pantry. And the same thing with that transportation. If they go in and get a reimbursement for transportation, who am I to take that money from them? That's their money. Now, we know that we've had a couple of jokers that we give rides to that then go in and claim the transportation dollars. And so we have to talk with them and say, you know, that's just not a good thing to do. You're on your road to recovery. That's not part of recovery.
Before I ask
Can we do that?
Yeah, I was just wondering if you were able to work with the VA to get
Here's the last
reimbursement for
thing I
something.
want.
They might not be eligible.
See, it has to go to that individual. And the last thing I want to do is make someone not want to go to their appointment because I'm going to take their money. I want them to go to their appointment. I want to know that they went to their appointment. And I do that. And with some folks, we have some of our vets who just go to Bedford for the day. They've got old friends at Bedford, and they just want to go to the cafeteria and have a Coke with one of their old friends. So why can't we do that kind of stuff? And that's kind of the thing. But I'm not going to take their personal money out of their pocket for that ride. But I want to encourage them to do things that help others and help themselves. That's why in our buildings we don't do any coin-operated laundry. I want people to do their laundry. I also don't want to go in and repair things when vandals come in and do things in some of the neighborhoods that we're in. That could be a problem.
Joe.
John, does the VA reimburse you back on transportation funds? Does it take those bets down?
In our grant per diem program, we have a grant per diem van.
Yeah, okay.
So in that respect, yes, but most of it, we utilize some of the donations we get.
They don't give you anything from per veteran?
There is no VA transportation money line for
you guys, but I'm saying for a veteran, if he uses his own private transportation, he would get reimbursement.
They should.
That's what I'm saying. Why can't they give you reimbursement? Because you're taking veterans there, they're authorized to reimburse. Why can't they reimburse?
Why can't the VA do that?
Yeah.
I don't think they have the tool. Maybe they just don't want to, or maybe we just haven't.
It's dumb. It's very dumb.
Maybe we just need to approach that with.
I think it's a good idea. You should.
Yeah.
Because if you're taking veterans down, it should help you pay for the gas mileage and the gas and transportation for a veteran, because he's authorized.
It's not a bad idea. I think it's worth talking to the VA transportation guy locally, but that's going to be a decision that comes from higher than him. I think probably there's some fear of fraud that can happen also, but.
See, that's what I don't understand. When they reimburse the mark, the public transportation companies that take the vets down, they reimburse them back and they're funded. And I can't see why you can't get that funded.
I'll approach that. See if we can do something.
Thanks, Larry.
Jazz, do you have?
Well, yes, I'd like to propose that we set up some kind of a small committee to do a needs analysis, just so that we can talk about more so what we're looking at as far as numbers is concerned, and what we need to do to set up for, I would like to also plan for an outreach so that we can have outreach to the community on an individual basis, working with John so that we can get more information so that when we reconvene, we have a better base to know where our next step is going to be.
Okay. Is it possible to get email addresses and phone numbers for you before you leave? Because we'd like to have your input, obviously, if you would continue to do so.
I agree with what you're saying, but I think any outreach effort ought to be a combination with.
Yes.
That's what I'm saying.
Yes, that's what he meant.
And that's, you know,
All of that's- all
whether
of
we
us
do a
together.
mini health fair or something like that, and we bring in some services and find a facility to do that and find out what we feel a good day or 2 days would be that we do this kind of thing. I think if you limit yourself to one time, not everybody can come to that.
Right.
Right, I'm thinking just to get a better feeling of where we need to take for our next step, all right? And if we have to, we'll see if we can get a place at Devon's or something like that, if it's a larger place, so that we can really...
You know, actually, the Hall of Flags there at Devon's will always allow you to use it if it's for a veterans-related event. We just have to book it ahead of time, but they're very, very generous with letting you use that facility.
I might think about that as a follow-up. I think your first one ought to be in the community itself.
Yeah, if
You
we
need
want
to make
How about
it,
having it at the VFW?
you need to make it.
Yeah, I mean, you know, the facilities are here in this town. The Townsend VFW is definitely large enough to handle this. I agree. This needs to be done first in the town, because we're trying to pull the people from Ashby, Pepperell, and Townsend. Pushing it up to Devon's, that's taking it outside of our community. It's not going to work. It's going to be failure on our behalf.
Yeah.
It really needs to be here.
All I'm saying is that right now, we need to really get together to figure out what we're proposing.
Oh, I totally agree. I totally
So,
agree.
like, just a mini committee so that we figure out who we need to reach out to, and then we all together can reach out to who we need to, so that then we can plan for something a little bigger. But I'm just saying
You actually
initially.
have a question too, I think.
Hi, Chris Novelli again. If there's some sort of needs analysis that's ongoing, I know that Studio One would be more than willing to partake in that, whether it's exploring the possibilities of the site or anything. I
Oh,
know.
thank you. Thank you, Chris. So for those of you who don't know, Chris did Townsend Woods for us. And that worked out wonderfully.
Yeah, our firm does all sorts of family housing and special needs housing all throughout the states.
So you're just offering us.
Yeah.
I'm sure it would be more than willing to assist in any way that we can.
All right, Chris, thank you.
And in any way that wouldn't prohibit us from bidding on the
Bidding in the
project.
future. Mhm. Agreed.
So I'm ready to sit on a committee, as is Randy.
Okay.
Okay.
So all told.
Yeah, okay, and I think as far as like what you were just saying, Chaz, I think a couple of them, Joe needs to be on it, and one, if not all of the veterans that are here need to be on it. But, you know, veterans are probably in a better position to work with them than.
And one thing, we like to actually leverage the American Legion also. Right now, this is pretty much all it's all VFW here right now. The American Legion is alive and well. Brian Borneman, I know he's a member of the VFW, but he's also the commander of the local American Legion in Townsend. We probably also should be looking at the Ashby Legion and the Pepperell VFW also, because they know their people also. I mean, the ace is really Joe, because Joe is the service officer for the three, but it's good to have input from the Pepperell VFW to include the Ashby American Legion, to where we're capturing all the veteran organizations in the three towns, to include, of course, our service officer, and then others also. I think it's important that we get that big snapshot.
So how many people do you think should be on this committee to make it not too unruly, but a workable, like, I'm sure you've worked with other size committees in other towns.
8 or 10.
The less of the better, 3 the most. people that know what they're doing, just do it.
Right, but if he's saying bring in the American Legion and the other towns,
I
yeah.
think you're gonna need at least a rep from
Right.
the Legion or.
Yeah, I think we need to get one from the Legion and Pepperell. The Legion here in Townsend, it's kind of like, I'm gonna use biased, because if they're, in most cases, if they're a VFW member, they're probably a Legion member.
Okay.
Because they qualify to be in both. So for us to pull it, they actually make their meetings all out of the Townsend VFW now.
Okay.
Because they lost their building.
So isn't Brian, isn't he the region?
No, he's the he's the
American
post
Legion?
commander for Townsend.
Oh, for Townsend,
For the American Legion.
for the American Legion.
You know, I can get some statistics from Boston, and on our area of veterans who are disabled, the percentages, how much, we can get that information from Boston, from the state. They don't give us that information, how many veterans are disabled and stuff like that. So once you're talking about demographics,
Yeah.
you've got to compound, number one, you're going to put housing in. Is the housing going to be limited to financial needs too? Is it going to be open for, I mean, if I'm making $100,000 a year and I'm retired, am I going to be eligible for that housing?
Our first
I would
thought,
hope not.
our first thought,
What I'm saying is that we got to come up,
And that's what that committee would actually drive.
Right, and that's where I feel like they could give guidance, but if we had some from each town, one person from each entity maybe.
Correct, and I think it would be important if Cindy could be on that committee, and I'll tell you why I say that. One thing that we don't look at, and I was the legislative officer for the VFW at the national level, and one of the things that we don't do well at is we don't look at our female veterans. We need to look at the needs of the female veterans as well as the needs of the male veterans. It's two different animals.
Oh, no, you should
And we've
definitely.
caught ourselves short too many times not taking care of the female veterans equally to the male
Right.
veterans.
What we're seeing, both male and female single parents.
right, the single
Starting to
parents.
see a good deal
That
of
was
single parents.
a big part of
Male or
what,
female,
right.
with children.
And let me just bring this back to who we are. This is the Townsend Housing Authority, but the whole purpose of that whole parcel of land is affordable housing. So rather than just affordable elderly housing, which is what Townsend Woods was, senior housing, the first building was affordable housing, which also allowed, there was no age. If you were disabled, whatever the affordability was, the guidelines, that first 50-unit building was all affordable housing. So our second building was 36 units of affordable housing, but senior only, okay? So now, our next discussion and our next project was veterans housing. And we were looking at disabled, we were looking at affordable. So I don't think, if I'm speaking out of turn, say something here, but that's our whole,
So the $100,000 retiree probably would not be eligible.
It's affordable housing to help people that couldn't have housing.
We were trying to incorporate veterans housing.
Right.
Yeah.
Into it, we still are off.
Joe?
Obviously, 2.5-year wait to try to get into
Right.
just the elderly housing.
sure.
Yeah.
And the disabled veterans who are getting compensated from the Veterans Administration, the rating goes from 10 to 100%, okay? So if and you could be 100% and go out and work and make $100,000 a year, you're a disabled vet. You're considered a disabled vet at 100%. You can get to 30%, you're considered a veteran, or you're unemployable at 100%, that means you can't work, okay? So your disability, you can't work. So what I'm trying to say is that if I'm a disabled vet, and you say I was hoping for disabled vets, and I'm working, and I'm retired, and I'm bringing in $150,000 a year for...
I don't think that's where we were going.
Okay, I'm saying...
Yeah.
We were going for affordable housing, we're trying to fill a
So you
need.
have to meet a guideline at a certain...
Yeah.
We're trying to help out
Yes.
the veterans that
That needs it.
aren't in that 150 or 50, that,
That's what I'm saying.
need a little help.
So you're looking
Cindy?
at the low
I know
level...
one benefit
yes.
that the legislature took care of last year was to remove VA disability payments from the formula
That's right.
for
Yeah.
affordable housing, so that if you're 100% and you're getting the $2,000 to $3,000 a month that you get from 100%, and that number was actually preventing disabled veterans to qualify
That's right.
for the poverty level needed in order to get any kind of public housing. They were, oh, you're getting 100%, you're 100% disabled, you can't. So the legislature passed a law last year that removes that from the formula, so that's a big benefit that would raise the bar for how many veterans we'd be able to accept that would actually need the housing.
I
Well, they
believe
would
that
need-
stipulation is for housing that comes under the cognizance of housing authorities.
Correct.
So what we would want to do is make sure we're partnering with the housing authority, that paperwork is coming in
Right.
through the housing authority for qualification.
Right.
Which would
That's
then
how it was the
allow
last-
that
right.
100%er who's now $10 over the limit, access to that housing.
Right. Chaz is sitting there, but he is our nominee for the state rep from the Housing Authority. And so we're just waiting for that to come through. And so Chaz, I would like to ask that you take the lead on this in the small group.
Okay.
Okay.
I will take that, sure.
Yeah, and hopefully we'll have that very soon.
And hopefully we'll have that very soon. We know that the paperwork is in, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And I can take out to
Okay. Any other questions?
So if we could just get, like, if I could have email addresses and
Yeah,
we'll
just
briefly.
pass the sheet
Yeah,
back to
we'll
them.
briefly talk and set up a time where we can all get together and talk about what we need to go forward with this.
And I have reached out personally, just Keith, from your remarks at the last meeting, to female vets. And there were 3 that I asked to come here, tonight, and they were not able to make it. So, but they are aware of what we're doing, and I think it's a really good idea.
Thank you.
When we have the meetings with vets, we'll make sure that we have female veteran representation also at those meetings.
Maybe when you have the small group meet and you get that all together, then you can decide on a date to book, say at the VFW, or we can do here as well, but if you would rather have it at the VFW, that's up to you. I'd like to have you discuss that and then make a recommendation. Okay? Cindy?
If this is going to be a committee, do we need to make it an official committee and with appointments?
I don't know if we're going to go through that. This is just kind of like a task force or just a discussion group. I don't think we're going to now add another layer to it as far as town hall goes, but just to make sure, just a subcommittee of this is going to report back, that's all, because it's mostly going to be members of the community and not just one person from the board. Okay?
Is there anything else you think we need to know at this point?
Now, you brought in the placards, and I started you off. Were you going to make another kind of presentation?
I just wanted to show, and if anyone wanted to see the different types of housing that we were involved in, the different scope, everything from, a single-family unit to duplexes and triplexes, and our newest project that just got approved by the state, 44-unit complex in Haverhill, which I'll pass this around.
Oh, wow.
Oh.
That's going to
That's
going to demolish the old Gerson Furniture Building in Haverhill.
Yeah.
And 3 or 4 buildings to the left of it.
And that's right near the train station.
That is right near the train station. It's 1 block or 2 blocks from the C-Block.
We'll pass that around.
Yep.
Block from the bus station.
Good. Yeah, perfect location.
It's a really good location for that.
And it's going to have 44 units.
44 units, 1, 2s, and 3 bedrooms.
Great.
See, now what we have now are, I think the building that has 50 units in it may have a couple of studios and then just 1 bedrooms. There are no 2 bedrooms in either one of the buildings. The 36-unit building is all 1 bedrooms, all aging in place. Chris can answer
We're
that
looking
now.
more to but for families,
But we're looking to really a mixed use. So we may have a studio, we may have some one-bedrooms, we might end up with a duplex where, you know, kind of thing where we could put a family in. All of that's on the table, but everything is to help
Some of
the
the
veterans.
outlying area that we had looked at, talked about duplexes. and
Yeah, for
fourplexes.
families. We were thinking if we could have like a duplex section, I think we talked about, and
Kind of
then
a quiet, out of the way
sort of an
area,
apartment
away from
section.
everything else.
But that may need a separate septic, do you think?
I think we can probably design, maybe able to be designed to be pumped in with it,
Okay.
pumped up to the other part of the system.
Because we have enough land to do a few things. It doesn't have to be just the one building that we did before.
And as for the building of them, you contract that out, right? You take in bids from builders to put these together for you? Okay.
Is it okay with you if Chris does attend your meeting and give his perspective of what needs to be done there?
Having
Because
gone
he did a
through
great
it.
job at the last one, he really did. Okay. Chris, do you want to leave your card and
Yeah,
give it to Chaz? Any other questions from our veterans, or comments, or any more feedback? So appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming and
Yeah,
giving
thank
all
you.
your input.
We're going to do a work session.
Yes, and Joe, I'm sorry that I misspoke when I said you weren't here. I'm sorry that I misspoke when I said you weren't here. Thank you for being here.
You look like
He was hiding.
I'd like you to stay for the work session.
What is, oh, I know.
And you don't have to do that, we're going to do it. Yes, thank you so much. And you'll be having this on